conversation with Michael C. Bland. Michael's debut novel was published in 2020, though released during a global pandemic. The Price of Safety reached #7 in Amazon ranking for dystopian novels and received award by the Indie Book Award for both science fiction and thriller, and by National Indie Excellent Award. The second novel in the trilogy, The Prince of Rebellion, was released in May 2023 and has won 9 awards to date, including Best Science Fiction Novel of the Year by Indies Today. He's a founding member and the secretary of BookPod, an online book support group. Two of the short stories he edited have been nominated for the Pushcart Prize, while Ace Bland is experienced the White Knight in Helsinki, snuck onto Russian battlefield, toured Broadway backstages, explored restricted area of West Point, stood atop a glacier in Switzerland, and saw Lena in a storm in Red Square. Yet, writing is one of his biggest thrills. And on today's episode of Auto Interview, it's my utmost pleasure, joy, and excitement to offer the show today Michael C. Bland and Cinder Bright for hosting me in the conversation. Welcome on the show, Michael.
Peter, thank you for having me. Cindy as well. Good to be here.
We love having you. We do.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, really, having you on the show today. Thanks for coming on. So, Mike, I want to first say that I found the description page of your award-winning novel, The Prince of Safety, which is the first book in the Prince of Trilogy series, to be quite captivating, compelling, wholesome, on Amazon. And I would like you to tell us about how the book came about. What inspired you to write The Prince of Safety, and how do you even come up with the title name for a startup?
Thank you. Well, and this is the book for those who are
Beautiful.
reviewing this. So the inspiration from it actually came from a surprising spot. Was I was in Chicago and I was on the L heading home, and I realized at one point that every single person in the car that I was in was just staring at their phone, just nose buried in their phone, and I'm sitting there going, I could just start taking off all my clothes and no one would have any idea that was happening.
Wow.
But at the same time, in every car, there are 3 cameras on the ceiling. So while no one is watching, someone could always be watching. And so that started down this rabbit hole of trying to imagine, especially right now, at the time it was 2018, I believe. And as technology gets more and more prevalent and more as a part of our lives, even though imagine it's already a huge part, imagine it growing even more. How would you get to a point where you could protect yourself from those all-seeing, all-watching cameras? And then on top of it is, if you have people that you care about, you have loved ones that are in danger, you're trying to protect them. How do you protect them? How do you mask them in this kind of world? And that was the starting point for this. And the title, The Price of Safety, the underlying premise with it is that technology has gotten so interwoven that no crime goes unsolved anymore. In fact, the very start of the back of my book says it's by 2047, no crime in America goes unsolved. No wrongdoing goes unseen. And just like so much in technology and so much in people's best interest or what they're trying to do, that doesn't always come across or doesn't always result in the results that you want. Okay. And technology is like anything, it's a tool. So while it can be a great thing, and some of those cameras can help protect you, and they can kind of help if something ever happens to have a record and help support what happened, at the same time, it can also be used against you. And that was the premise of the story.
Wow.
You've talked about how things could be used to protect you, and at the same time, technology could be used against you. Thinking of that, technology plays such a big part in your trilogy. How realistic is this trilogy technology, and how close are we in making it a reality and not just fiction anymore?
I really try to make this series as realistic as possible. I try to really ground it in a level that the reader can just dive in, that it's a world really close to our own. The main character, he loves Silver Sun Pickups, that band, and that kind of thing. But at the same time, it's this world that's 25 years in the future. So some of the technology, I did a ton of research before the book, and what's crazy is some of the technology that I had kind of envisioned has already started to come to pass. The brain implants, not only Elon Musk, but others are already working on that kind of technology. Another one, and this cover is with these these drones attacking in a swarm. Soon after the first book came out, this company in California showed how they're using those drones to attack in that fashion. But then the one that really kind of freaked me out is, so for the second book, Price
Mm.
Rebellion. Soon after that, one of the pieces of technology in that book is called a DNA scanner. And we all shed bits of dead skin and hair
Mhm.
follicles just as we go about our day. Well, in my book, there's this machine sucks those out of the air, runs the DNA, and identifies you. A month after this came out, a company in California announced that they had created that exact technology.
Wow.
They say it's for when people are hiking and, that, gee, if someone gets lost, they could have tracked them. But really, is that what they're really going to end up using it for? Right? So that's where it's become already as a lot more realistic than I had expected. I didn't expect a technology like that to be developed for quite some time. And
Mm.
2023, it was already available.
That's actually very amazing. Yeah. And while you were lifting up the first book, I see that there's an inscription in front page of it. It won an award, right?
Yes, actually, this one has won 4 awards
Interesting.
by Indies Today, National Indies Excellence Award. This one has won 9 awards,
Wow.
including Best Science Fiction Novel of the Year by Indies Today, which I'm very proud of.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now let's talk a bit about the Prince of Rebellion. I know you've showed it to the camera already, which is a follow-up
Yes,
book to the first series, yeah. Now,
yes.
for readers who haven't read it yet, and of course without giving much information away, could we have a sneak of what we'd expect in terms of themes and subject lines picking up the Prince of Rebellion?
Good question. So the price of safety, I have the analogy as like the original Matrix movie. Okay, you have Neo, he becomes the one, and at the end he's one. But then he has that phone call and says basically, watch out for what comes next.
Mm,
That's what this is then Dre Quintero, the main character in my trilogy, he has done something you'll see at the end of the first book, and he's kind of opening the door to a wider conflict. And
mm,
so this starts a month after the end of the first book. And he is now part of this greater challenge, this greater adventure. And so it's while he is still trying to protect those he loves, he is also part of this greater journey and this bigger fight. And he's trying to struggle between still protecting those he cares about, but then do you now have an obligation to help those who don't know the truth of what he's learned and try to help them um, rebel against this world that they're in and take their own lives back and their own freedoms back. And so that's one of the big themes, the big struggles within this second book. At the same time, he's
mm.
struggling with loss that he had suffered in the first book. And so it's his journey trying to come to grips with that and trying to accept it. But then he's also course, a lot of surprises in the book, and I'm trying not to ruin any of them for those who haven't read it
No
yet.
spoilers, right?
You're right, exactly. It's always like I want to be able to tell because I think it's so great, but at the same time, then I ruin it for people, and I hate to do that. Um, but there are a lot of twists and turns. But then he also has to make that decision. Does
Mm.
he? What does he choose? Does he choose his loved ones? Does he choose the greater good?
That's a
Interesting.
tough one with having that choice and the angst in it. Okay, with top technology set aside, how do you balance that with the human side? Specifically the characters in your story?
I
Mm.
really, it's with the big focus on that core, on his family, because for Dre, his biggest thing that drives him is protecting his kids.
Wow.
And part of it for me was taking that step back and for a trilogy, or sorry, sci-fi type of novel. And this is sci-fi-ish. It's not, there are no aliens, there's no star spaceships, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But it's still science fiction. It's the technology in that world. Think like Minority Report type of thing. But with it is a lot of science fiction stories, and I'm a huge sci-fi fan, but a lot of them are kind of like the lone person, right? The
Mm,
lone individual, and they might get a love interest, but really, like they never have family. There's no cousins. There's no best friend from high school. It's like where are all those people,
mm,
right? And in the future, we are going to have family still, right? I mean, I assume so. And you're going to have your, best friend, and you're going to have a coworker that really annoys the heck out of you, that kind of thing. So I really wanted to have with the core and back to the original idea of the story is how do you protect your loved ones? So for Dre, it's all about his family and protecting those that he cares about. And he also does, yes, care about the greater good to a degree, but like all of us, your core is your core people, right? Whether your
Yes.
family or your best friend or your aunt or whoever it might be. And so I really had that as a big focus with the book. So it's not just technology, it's
Mm.
the people in it, how that impacts the characters, and how the characters fight back while protecting those they care about. So I
Mm.
have that balance through all three of the books.
Wow,
Oh,
impressive.
wow. That's such a beautiful balance you've got there. A beautiful balance between technology and human, and incorporating it together with a character in the story. Quite beautiful. Now, Michael, one of the most interesting to me as a writer is the fact of listening to readers' feedbacks. And you may want to agree with me that this is one of the things that make literature to be quite complex in its entirety, is the fact that it can be interpreted by different readers in different ways. Sometimes the readers might, get a different opinion aside from what the author tried to communicate. Sometimes it might be close to getting the information. Sometimes they might be very far away from getting the information. And sometimes they might mix the entire information completely. As interesting as it sounds, and as I would like to ask you, how do you feel when readers interpret your works differently than you intended?
That's a good question. That is a part of it's kind of like almost a conversation, a relationship between the writer and the
Mm,
reader. Everyone brings their own nuances and they have their own experiences and their own opinions. And I leaned into that a little bit because you'll see for both covers,
yeah.
there are shadows of the characters. I don't
Mhm.
show their faces. I want you as the reader to decide, what does Dre look like? What does
Mm,
his daughters look like? What do the bad guys look like? We all have our own. And of course, I know I have the images very clearly in my head because I've lived with these characters for years. And I've talked with readers, their descriptions. I'm like, is that the same character? kind of thing. But that's part of the fun. And that's part of what makes that story more grounded and more real to them.
yeah.
And so I encourage that and I want that. Now, if there's a place where they go, well, this character, I thought they were, great. And I'm like, that's the bad guy. I mean, I did try to make the bad guys as realistic and as multidimensional, because everyone's a hero of their own story, right? So
Mhm.
even the bad guys, they're the hero. They think that they are doing the right thing for everyone, no matter how warped or twisted or deranged that might be. So
Mm,
even the bad guys, I wanted to have an element of, okay, maybe if I were in their shoes, maybe I would start to think a little like that kind of thing. I definitely don't want anyone to be one dimensional. So having that interpretation, I encourage. Now, if they go, wow, that was a great, Western. Well, clearly I did a horrible job as a writer if you missed even the kind of book that this is, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have that. I did, of course, there are, like anything, I've had a couple bad reviews on, Amazon.
mm,
Okay, no book will be loved by everybody. Harry Potter books, some absolutely hate them and think they're annoying. You can pick any book and there are going to be detractors. That's part of the beauty slash frustration of art, right? Is everyone's
absolutely.
going to have their own opinion, everyone's going to have their interpretation, and just so long as, frankly, it resonates enough that people have an opinion, that's what means the most. Because if they have zero opinion, well, then I've really done a horrible job. If you weren't impacted at all, you weren't affected, and the book was, not interesting at all, then I didn't do a good job.
Interesting.
Writing is definitely, and reading is definitely subjective. It most
Yeah.
definitely is all the way around.
Absolutely. Yeah.
A apart from the first and the second books in this particular series, do you have any other works you've authored or currently working on? Is there more to come?
Yes, the third book in the trilogy is done. In fact, I'm going to
Wow.
send it to my publishing company, I believe the end of this week. I'm very excited about that. So to me, the story is done. This is a beginning, middle, and end. And so the story is complete. There are a couple things that I could like spin off kind of thing if I wanted to, but this is a complete story. It ended better than I originally kind of hoped it would after, a lot of work and everything. But that one, it's done. And I
Mhm.
did write one other thing prior to this. It was called Lawyers Can't Fly. It was a humorous take on superheroes.
Wow.
And that one I actually ended up pitching the idea to Columbia Pictures. It was a few years
Mm.
ago. And if you go to my website, mcbland.com, I talk about that experience, which was a great time. But this is the first trilogy that I've had published. And then now that it's done, I can start writing the next book I want to write.
I, yeah, I know this is a science fiction, but I hope there's an HEA moment in here, which is like a happily ever after moment.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I mean, not everyone, skips off into the sunset, but yes, I
okay.
think in the end it is I think it's an impactful element of happily ever after. How's that?
Quite interesting, yeah. Now,
Yeah, I
I've
like that.
always been
Hey, I'm a
fascinated
girl.
about how authors, especially novelists like yourself, craft long sentences and bring words together in a way that sentence make paragraph and paragraph make pages and pages make chapters and chapters coming together to make a novel like you've just shown to the camera in there. It's always surprising. How did they get the ideas and inspiration to pull these words together? Where are the sentences coming from? How are they able to transition beautifully from one chapter to another without missing anything out of it? And as far as writing is concerned, I'd like to ask you, how do you get your inspirations and ideas? Where do they come from?
They come from all over. The I have the Notes app on my iPhone, and if anyone looked at it, there's so many scattered thoughts, notes, comments, everything. I have to be the kind of writer that I have to plan it out. As you'll
Mm,
see, those of you who read my stories, they're very detailed, and I try to make the
wow.
world as not only realistic but consistent throughout in terms of the rules of the world and that kind of thing. It's almost like the analogy of, well, if someone just picked up a cell phone and just called Bob, then that would resolve the whole conflict type of thing, right? Well, you want to make sure that there's no scenario like that.
Mm,
And with the ideas, especially with the first book, I had some great ideas, great scenes, and impactful things that would happen, but they didn't fit my world, and I had to cut them, which was painful, but it's all in service of the story. So to answer your question,
wow.
it's an element of I'm having to plan everything out and take all my scattered ideas and make sure that they fit and where do they fit and the tone and the pace and that arc throughout the story to grab that reader, take them and keep them interested because frankly, I'm fighting for everyone's attention for reading a book compared to, internet and TikTok and, TV and
Mm,
everything else. So I need to make sure to grab your attention and hold on to it. And that's what I, attempted to do with these stories. And then the other big thing is edit, because you're right, the words and the sentences and everything else. If you as a reader are noticing what I've done in terms of the words and structure and everything, I've done a bad job. I if I did a good job, you're not paying attention at all. You're just flying through the story, and that's what I want.
that's actually
Thinking
amazing
that,
because I've heard so many people say, yeah, I got inspiration from dreams, from things I've seen around me, from conversation I heave drops on, from the story of a life of friends, from my own personal experience. It's always amazing how we get inspiration from different ranges of ways. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Absolutely.
I got like two questions here, but could you tell us what like the publishing has been like for yourself? And then like what challenges you might have encountered in the process of publishing your story?
The terms of the publishing process, I love it because it's one thing to come up with a idea that's viable to create a novel. Then it's to create the novel and it's to edit it. And then you think, okay,
Mm,
well, once this is published, then great. Then just the reviews will come in and all that stuff, and everyone will be excited. Yeah, not really. I mean, once you get published, you're then fighting to get exposure and get readers and get that interest because there's so many other incredible books out there. There's also some not as incredible, but you have to help get your name and get your exposure, just so people get that interest and decide to read your book. My publishing company, actually, I was blessed because the BookPod that Peter mentioned earlier. Actually, I had another author that offered to, after grilling me about what the story was about and the themes and the characters and all that stuff,
wow.
offered to make an introduction to his publishing company.
Mm,
And they decided to, well, okay, I'll take a look at the manuscript. And not to toot my own horn for a second, but 3 days later, gave me the contract. And so I called my buddy back and I was like, oh my God, I got the contract. He's like, wait, 3 days? So it took me 6 months to get the contract with them. So I was able to get a contract. So that part, luckily, was less painful. But then, while it's a good publishing company, I'm very happy with them. Problem is, unless I'm a Stephen King and J.K. Rowling, um, there's very little that they do in terms of advertising, marketing, PR. You're just one of many other publishers that has a book out there, and that's then the bigger challenge, or another challenge, is then getting the name out there.
Mm.
interesting.
And marketing is not easy.
It's not.
Marketing is not easy. You have to wear so many hats as a writer anyway, right? The writer, the editor, that kind of thing, and then to be then a marketer, that's not my expertise. So it's that's definitely a challenge at times. But I mean, overall, I've been successful. But some missteps, some gee, I could have done things maybe a little different. But it's all part of the growth and all part of the process.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
with your accomplishments, I mean, your awards and stuff like
Awards.
that makes you stand out. Seriously,
It
that
does.
does.
Thank you. And that has helped. And has definitely it adds exposure and adds credibility to, oh, okay, this is your first trilogy, but you've received these awards. Okay, maybe I'll give you a shot.
Absolutely. And another thing I think award gives it motivates you to do more, to continue. Because sometimes you might feel reluctant as a writer, especially if you're doing it, and nothing is really for showing for it. You're like, "Oh, should I just give up? Should I just rest a bit?" Yeah. But with the fact that you've won an award, you've won this, it's something to keep you going, something to give you an extra motivation
Agreed. Agreed. It's like, okay, maybe this is worth all the time and
all
the
the
efforts
time.
and all of it.
Yes.
Yeah. Because at times I
Absolutely.
wonder why do I do this? But no, I love it. I love writing.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, before we wrap up for today, is there anything that you'd love to share with the viewers about your books that we did not mention in this interview and you'd love the viewers to know? And also, I'd like to ask you, how do you handle criticism as a writer?
I think we've covered most of what I wanted to convey. The awards, the third book is done. Oh, also, it's available on Audible. The first one's out. The second one just is being released. I think today it'll be available on
Mm.
Audible. For those of you who love audio versions, the same author or the same vocal actor that did the first two will do the third as well. So he's going to do all three. I didn't do it. My publisher decided to have actual professional do it, which is probably smart. Um, yeah, and as far as criticism, it's unfortunately part of, as part of the gig. It's part of what you unfortunately are gonna have to,
Experience.
go through. And yeah, it's frustrating, especially, even I remember one person mentioned something about, well, this isn't believable because the agents in the book, they're uh they don't blend in. And the thing is they all have a number of implants in their head, so they have silver hair to help kind of mask how
Oh,
many implants they have. But they were never meant to be like the James Bond kind of spy agents. They're more
oh,
enforcement agents. They're supposed to stand out. So, okay, then as a writer, okay, then just I make a mention of the third book that, yeah, they're enforcement type agents. Okay.
mm,
Um, but at the same time, there's also some criticism that, well, I don't particularly agree with, but It's a free country. It's a free world. You can express whatever your feelings are online. And while, it's not much fun to read. It's what it is, and that's their opinion.
I think it's kind of interesting how you used that description of the implants and the silver hair and stuff and her constructive comment and implemented it into your third book for clarification. I think that's something that artists are always doing, layering information in their story. And that was a key component that you utilized to make your book that much more richer.
Right, right. So some of the criticisms, it's because I don't think they were intentionally doing it to say, hey, Michael, you need to make this change. But it was something that to them resonated. Me, I didn't think twice, but when I was writing the first two books, because to me it was pretty, evident, especially depending on how the agents acted. But okay, that was kind of a good note. Okay, add to it to yes, exactly, Cindy, to just reinforce this is the type of characters these are. This is the risks that they carry, that they're these enforcement in your face kind of, challenge that the good guys have to try to face. So added to it.
As a published author and everything that you've done, what sort of advice do you think is one of the most important things that you would share with other authors still struggling to publish their books? And actually, where can we pick up that book?
Okay, well, to answer your first question, the biggest thing that helped me was getting another author's input where they would edit chapters of my book, I would edit chapters of theirs. And we're talking down to specific line items within sentences and chapters. And my writing really elevated when I hooked up with this guy, Robert Krabak. He's a former professional actor, now writer. He has 3 of his own successful books out. And it was very painful at times because he would not hold back at all. And that's what you need. Of course, your partner, your parents, they're going to say, oh, Johnny, this is a great story. Well, that doesn't help you as a writer get any better and find where your issues are. You need someone who understands the craft and who will not pull punches. And frankly, while it was painful at times, I would rather he cut and point out the issues and push back with here's your problem with this story or this character or this scene or whatever, compared to a potential publisher. Because that publisher is going to say, nope, they're not ready, and move on to another book.
Yep, so I totally agree.
Yeah, that is the one piece of advice. If any of your viewers who are writers, do that. It will be, and you want it where it's frankly painful at times, and you need to be as honest and blunt back to that other person with their work to help them grow. I cannot emphasize enough, that's a huge benefit.
Yes.
As far as where to find my books, they're available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, the audio versions on Audible and iTunes. You can also go to your local bookstore. They can get it there. I've seen it at some libraries as well that I visited, which is kind of a cool, hey, look, there's my book kind of thing. Also, you can go to my website, www.mcbland.com. Okay. And there you can go there for links to the books to find out more about me. And you can also reach out to me. You can sign up for my newsletter or just reach out to me if you want.
Yeah. And I left a link in the discussion part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Michael C. Bland's books directly on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and his website, and also another platform. I also left a link to social media pages for possible followings. So thank you so much, Michael, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. It's awesome. And I must say it's more than awesome, actually, having this lovely and beautiful conversation with you around your books. Thanks for coming on.
Peter, Cindy, thank you for having me on. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you. We enjoyed having you.
Yeah.